This video will show you how to solve multi-step equations that involve fractions. The first thing you see here is that you've got a bunch of fractions in the equation, and if you're like most students, you don't like fractions. So what I say is get rid of the fractions. And the way you get rid of the fractions is find a common denominator and then multiply both sides by that number. So the common denominator for 3, 2, and 3 is 6. We're going to multiply both sides by 6. Multiplying both sides by 6 on this side requires me to distribute. Of course, on this side, I just have to do 6 times 5/3. Instead of setting up the problem like this, where you have to kind of distribute in your head, what I say you should do in the beginning is take the equation, rewrite that equation so that it's spread out a little bit, so you've got room to show what you're multiplying by. So this is the original equation, just spread out a bit. We have said that the common denominator is 6. Now the reason 6 is the common denominator is that 3 and 2 both go into 6. So I'm going to multiply this fraction by 6 over 1, this fraction by 6 over 1, and this fraction by 6 over 1. So when I say multiply both sides by this common denominator, what I really mean is multiply every single term by that common denominator. Spread out your equation like this so that you can do your canceling with the fractions. This denominator will cancel with this. That's the whole purpose of multiplying by this 6. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 6 twice, 2 times x is 2x. Of course, technically it's 2x over 1, but that's the whole purpose of multiplying by this common denominator. It will absorb this denominator. Come over here, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 6 3 times x is 3x. Equals, this side, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 into 6 twice, 2 times 5 is 10. And look at that equation now. There are no fractions. It's a simple equation to solve. Combine your like terms. 2x plus 3x is 5x equals 10. Divide both sides by 5, and x equals 2. So once we get rid of the fractions, this part should be pretty easy for you. Now, if you can't name the common denominator right off the top of your head, you can always find a common denominator by multiplying the denominators together and then use that number. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. I didn't need to do 3 times 2 times 3 because that 3 was a repeat of that 3. So we know we're going to multiply everything by this common denominator, so the first thing we want to do is rewrite the problem so that it's spread out a little bit. That just gives you room to do your work so that you don't make some sort of careless mistake with the arithmetic. Another thing I would suggest, anytime you have a binomial, you want to put it in parentheses. And I'll show you why in a second. We need the common denominator. Most people look at 5, 6, and 18 and don't have a clue what the least common denominator is. Well, 6 goes into 18, so I've already got the 6 covered by using 18. Then I could just do 5 times 18, which is 90. That is my common denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 90 over 1. Do you have to write the 90 over 1? No, but for a lot of people, they're more comfortable with that because that shows clearly a fraction times a fraction. So let's come over here and do our canceling. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 into 90 18 times. That 18 is in front of this parentheses. We need to distribute. So distribute 18 through the parentheses gives you 18x minus 18 plus. Same situation over here. 6 goes into 6 once, 6 goes into 90 15 times. Distribute the 15 through this parentheses, makes 15 times x is 15x. 15 times 2 is 30. So we've gotten rid of the fractions on the left side. On the right side, 18 goes into 18 once, 18 goes into 95 times. 5 times 7 is 35. Now, if you're not very comfortable with this canceling thing, you could just do 7 times 90, which is 630. 18 times 1 is 18. Use your calculator. 630 divided by 18 is 35. Now, look at that equation there in red. There are no fractions. It's our basic combining like terms kind of equation. 18x plus 15x is 33x. Negative 18 plus positive 30 is 12. Equals 35. And now we're down to just a plain old two-step equation. Subtract 12 from both sides. These 12s cancel out. We have 33x equals 23 Divide both sides by 33. And there's your answer. X equals 23 over 33. Don't expect all these equations to come out even. Sometimes they don't. So there's your answer for that equation. Another equation, this one has fractions only in two places, and where some people go wrong is to think they only need to multiply the portions of the equation that have the fractions. That's not true. We are going to start this out by separating it out. Notice I automatically already put the binomial in parentheses. The common denominator is really easy here. The common denominator is 4. Since 2 goes into 4, that makes it the common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this equation by, I'm going to multiply this term by 4. Multiply this by 4. Even though there's no fraction here, I must multiply everything in the equation by the same number. Multiply this by 4 over 1, and multiply this by 4. Over here, the 4's are going to cancel. So 4 cancels with 4. All I'm left with is 3x minus 2. I'm taking it out of parentheses because there's no reason for them anymore. Here, 4 times x is 4x. On the right side here, 2 goes into 2 once. 2 into 4 twice, but since this 2 is outside of parentheses, I need to distribute. 2 times 2x is 4x, 2 times 3 is 6, and then don't forget, 4 times 5 is 20. So we multiplied every single term by 4, we canceled out the fractions that we had, and now we have a reasonable equation. Combine your like terms over here, make 7x minus 2. Combine your like terms over here, you have 4x plus 26, and this is just one of these equations where we want to get x's to one side and numbers to the other. The easy way to do that would be to subtract 4x from both sides, which gives me 3x minus 2 equals 26. Basic two-stepper, add 2 to both sides. 3x equals 28. And then divide by 3, and there's your answer. X equals 28/3. Little different problem with this fraction in front of the parentheses here. I still am going to spread this out a little bit so I have room to do what I want to do. The common denominator for 3 and 4 is 12. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 12, here and here. Now you might say, wait a minute, why didn't you put the 12 over here? Well, this right here is one term. Yes, it has a fraction in front and parentheses in this binomial, but this is one term. So I'm multiplying that one term by that 12. And what happens here is the 3 cancels with 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times. And what I'm left with is 4 times 1 times that parenthesis. I'm just going to do one little step right here and do 4 times 1 is 4 times x plus 4. Same over here. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 into 12 3 times. 3 times 1 times the parentheses. I could have distributed on that step, but I'm just trying to do one little step at a time. Now I will distribute. Notice this blue equation, all the fractions are gone, so I just have to distribute. This is 4x plus 16 equals 18 minus 3x. And this is just getting your x's on one side and numbers to the other. Add 3x to both sides, which gives us 7x plus 16 equals 18. Subtract 16 from both sides. 7x equals 2. Divide both sides by 7. And there's your answer. X equals 2/7. Similar problem, just one extra number down here. We're going to multiply by the common denominator, which is 6, because 3 goes into 6. And I'm going to multiply this term by 6 over 1, this whole term by 6 over 1, and this by 6. Here it cancels, 3 and 6 cancel. I'm left with 2 times 1 is 2 times the parentheses. Here the 6's totally cancel. I just have 1 times the parentheses, so I can just write down 9x minus 24. 4 times 6 is also 24. So I've got some cleaning up to do here. Distribute on the left side, 2x plus 6. On the right side, negative 24 and another negative 24 is negative 48. So then let's put all this together. Subtract 2x from both sides. Those cancel out. We just have the 6 over here. This is now 7x minus 48. Add 48 to both sides. So 7x equals 54. 7x equals 54. Divide both sides by 7, and there's your answer. X equals 54/7. So this is the way you want to deal with equations that have a lot of fractions in it from the very beginning. Multiply everything by a common denominator and cancel out those fractions. Notice I keep saying common denominator. There's nothing that says you must use the least common denominator. 6 was the least common denominator. I could have used 18. 3 times 6 is 18. Everything would have canceled out. But if you use a bigger denominator than necessary, your numbers are larger to deal with. But since you have a calculator, that shouldn't be any big deal.